Good evening. The date is January 13th, 2025. The time is 5:30 p.m. and we are going to start our work session. And we're going to start with the city update from our Chief of Staff, Brian McCain.
Thank you, ma'am. Pueblo has been selected as one of 5 cities in the country to join the National Public Safety Partnership, PSP, through the Department of Justice. This program provides technical assistance to help us address violent crime. While we've seen a 7% decrease in Part 1 crimes in 2024, we're staying proactive to see sustainable long-term change in these crimes. This is a 3-year program that focuses on 8 core areas: community engagement, constitutional policing, crime analysis, criminal justice collaboration, federal partnerships, gun violence investigations, and technology. DOJ officials and partners will meet Tuesday and Wednesday this week to officially kick off the partnership and for orientation. Parks. Register today and learn from the best in the area during the ski and snowboard waxing workshop on Tuesday, January 28th. The Edge Ski Paddle and Pack will show us how to wax a set of skis and snowboards, along with maintaining our gear to keep it in working condition season after season. Tuesday, January 28th from 6 to 8 p.m. The registration fee is $15, ages 15 and older. Location will be George Williams Indoor Hall at 801 Goodnight Avenue, 81005. And the deadline is Monday, January 27th. To register in person, visit 800 Goodnight Avenue. Visit us online on our webpage and go to Parks and Registration or call 719-553-2790 to register over the phone. And for everybody's awareness, the Nature and Wildlife Discovery Center is no longer charging for parking at their River Campus. The River Campus offers great access to the Arkansas River Trail, access to great fishing holes, and has a good spot to launch takeout watercrafts on the Arkansas River. So we have some openings on boards and commissions. So right now for the Pueblo Depot Activity Development Authority Board of Directors, or Pueblo Plex, the deadline is the 3rd of next month at 8 a.m. You can apply on our commissions tab on the website. Current vacancies is the ADA Advisory Commission, and this will be open until full. And Community Services Advisory Commission, or CSAC, and the Pueblo Municipal Golf Course Advisory Committee. And again, those are open until they fill them. And then upcoming, we have another Pueblo Plex opening and a Fire Board of Appeals. And that concludes my update.
All righty, thank you. Anything from council? Councilor Flores.
As I understand, there's some sort of, I just found this out secondhand, that zeroing in on the bathhouse issue that we've had for the last several months, that the city is planning an RFP. And I'm just curious as to the what kind of process this is going to take. And I guess the question is, what is it that we're asking people to bid on?
We're working on that RFP now, and I'm more than happy to share it too once we have it together, but it's going to be an RFP for restoration of the bathhouse with certain benchmarks and criteria with it. We haven't got it together yet, but as soon as we do, we just started talking about this. I'll send it to you.
I'd like to see it. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Well, that's interesting. Who's funding that? Would that be funded through the city?
No, the city won't be providing any funding. So this will be a way for the group that's been coming and addressing the council and my office wanting to make the restoration, apply for grants through the historic preservation. This will be one way that they would be able to do this. They would have to have licensed contractors, their own funding, and what else were we going to list in there? I think that's it.
Yeah, and a timeline, basically.
And a timeline
A
for it to be
specific
finished.
timeline.
Okay. Yes, Councilor Flores.
Just to add, I forgot about this. The process that we used previously is that the council actually voted for the historical designation, and then the mayor vetoed that. So do we bring this back now as part of this RFP? Because people that are interested in submitting an RFP want to keep the historical designation there, which provides an avenue for so many opportunities to get funding. So is that going to be done in concert, RFP, and then the ordinance to put that back into
The RFP would have to be done first, and whoever wins the RFP would have to ask for it to be historically preserved by the city.
Well, why would they submit an RFP if we can't guarantee that they can go down that road? It seems to me that we're doing that backwards.
I wouldn't say that we couldn't guarantee it, but if they were successful in getting the RFP, we wouldn't make it a historical designation before, because then we would be stuck with the building just like we are with Black Hills 5 and 6. So we would need to see that they were gonna come forward with grant finances, other outside financing that they would want to bring in, a licensed contractor in order to do all the work, I think, before the council would even decide if they wanted to allow it to be historically preserved. I don't think it would make sense to do it the other way around, or we could potentially just have a building that we couldn't do anything to if no group was going to come along and do restoration on it. There's only one group that's interested in doing it, and so I think that this is a way for us to satisfy and them to satisfy us and meet our benchmarks and our needs as a city and provide the funding to do it. The council voted down all the funding tools, so there is no additional funding that can be paid by the city for this project. So this would allow them to apply for the grants that they have spoken about and allow for them to get their licensed contractors in the building, get drawings together, plans together on how they would bring this back up to what everybody wants it to be.
So if it's a winning bid and the city says we select you under this RFP, they can trust us that we'll give them, with all the appropriate information, that they can trust us that we will give them a historical designation.
That's up to the council.
Yeah.
So I think that I would request that they would come and present to you on what they would be looking to do, what kind of historic grants that they would be looking to apply for, and make sure that it jives with what you want to see.
And if you're 100% satisfied, you would not exercise your right to veto?
No, if this project is going to continue, it's going to be their money. It's going to be restored to what the city sees it to be. I don't have a problem with that. I mean, the funding is gone. It's the only option to move forward. The building's in pretty bad shape right now. So with the asbestos testing that we did prior, it's going to take a lot of work. And so if there's community members that have the millions of dollars in funding that it's going to take to restore this, more power to you.
Refresh my memory too. It seems to me that way back in April of last year, we actually passed an ordinance and allocated, I think, $1.3 million. So why
That
would
was all ARPA dollars. So that got, when the council voted down the funding, that all has been reallocated.
Okay. That's right. Okay, we'll see what happens. Thank you.
Yes, I think we should be cognizant too of, they need to, I would think that they would need to provide a study first that does, says something different than the study that we provided. Otherwise, all of that again is just talk. And so I think that I'd like to see one of the first things being done is that they do a study as part of their RFP.
Yeah,
in
I
that
think a study
timeline?
was actually asked to Councilor Maestri.
Pardon?
A study will be required.
Okay, great. Before we even decide to do a historical designation.
Absolutely.
Once we do that, you know what, we could be shackled by. Okay, great. Anything else from council? All right, we're going to continue with our first presentation tonight, and it's going to be the 2025 CSAC recommendations. And we are going to be speaking with Melissa Cook, who is our interim housing director, and Gina Lopez Ferguson, who is the CSAC chair. Welcome, ladies.
Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry about that. Okay, so yes, thank you for having us, everyone. We're excited to present to you the 2025 recommendations for the CSAC budget. Of course, as you'll recall, on November 15th, the budget was actually passed with the dollars. So this is simply just reviewing the recommendation that the CSAC board has put together and approving those. Before we get started, I would just like to give a huge thank you to the CSAC members. We have several CSAC members here sitting right behind us, as well as Gina, who is the incoming chair. I had not had much exposure to the CSAC or to the CSAC Commission prior to this role. And it was really eye-opening to see the work that they do. These are very dedicated volunteers that are able to do this very important work. So if anybody is at home watching this, as Chief of Staff McCain said earlier, we do have 2 vacancies on this board. We are looking to fill it, but the work that they do is tremendous, and I just wanted to say thank you. And with that, I will pass it over to you.
Great, thank you for this opportunity.
Mhm.
Clicker. Okay. Currently, we have 13 appointed members for the seats, or 14 appointed. All those seats are not quite filled yet. And the United Way Director or designee of the United Way does participate, and members serve 4-year terms. Overall, each of our members, we review applications thoroughly. And then if there are questions that we have, we can then reach out to applicants for additional information. And then throughout the year, there's always things going on. So this last spring, we spent time making site visits, post-award site visits to our 2024 grantees. And then with the new application process, we facilitate interviews with all the applicants. And then this year we had 2 separate meetings for grant decisions. And everything is hybrid. We always offer in-person or hybrid options for accessibility. So the portfolio for 2025, we were provided with $955,500 total to allocate. We received 30 grant requests. Of those, we looked at 26 to be competitive in the process, and 4 were not recommended for funding. Oh, this is just a short or kind of a collection or categorization of how the awards were split out. So some of our largest, as you'll see, after school care as well as victim services, food security was also one of our larger areas. And these are our current recommendations. I don't know if you want me to go line by line, but you should have that available for you to review.
Yeah, I provided prior to the meeting. Everybody should have a copy.
And this is a list of our current board members.
So that is what we came here tonight. I know that was very quick, but we just wanted to show you what these recommendations are, what we followed as far as the different groupings. Those were what was submitted in the RFP when it went out initially, asking for the nonprofit partners throughout the city to apply for. As mentioned, you each have the list in front of you of each of the CSAC recommendations that were also included in that PowerPoint. So at this point, we will entertain questions.
Any questions from council?
There you go.
Councilors, we'll start down here. Councilor Martinez.
Thank you. Thanks for that presentation. And to the CSAC members, I know it's a lot of work. Site visits can be a lot of work. So thank you all for your work volunteering throughout the year. I do have a couple of questions. Can we go back to the slide with the different categories on it? So for these categories, were the categories prioritized and then applications were sorted into the categories and then prioritized from there? Or were applications prioritized and then categorized?
Correct. The second.
Okay.
Yep.
And then can you talk a little bit about how the group so there's a 2025 request and then there's the 2025 award recommendation. Those numbers sometimes are different. And even just looking, it actually looks like most of them are different. The majority of them are different. Why? Help me understand why the recommendation is different than the actual award that was request or the actual recommendation.
So the request of the organizations of all of our requests totaled about $1.5 million. And so we had to scale down and prioritize funding through there. So we just didn't have enough money to fill 100% of the requests from the applicants in their portfolio. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, and so for example, let's go with Steelworks Center for the West. They requested 40,000 and the award recommendation was 10,000. Is that for examples like that, is that because you're as a group fulfilling a certain activity or just a portion of their request, or like how did, you know what I mean? Like how did that work?
Sure. So I would say that there are a number of different factors that were at play when making these determinations. A lot of it had to do with just some organizations, it was determined there was a lower priority for funding. And one of the considerations that we definitely held true to was also looking at the historic funding for an organization. So we definitely tried to minimize harm to an organization. So if they were coming in with a certain amount, we didn't want to recommend a greatly decreased amount without, of course, prior discussions or an understanding with that organization. So the majority of the recommended funding that you will see more or less correlates with what an organization has historically received.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yes.
Okay. That helps, Gina. Thanks. And then so there's a lot of different agencies that are going to get funds from CSAC this year. Does the CSAC committee themselves go out and do site visits for each one of these? Or is it more like, are they in charge of a certain number of agencies and then those are the sites? How does that work?
This past year, we really tried to just divide up as much as we can in accordance with availability with CSAC members. Some attended multiple, some attended none. It just depended on availability of our members and the organizations and how the scheduling worked. Towards the end, we paired up with one or two commission members and scheduled those site visits and then provided that information to the rest of the commission to join if they could.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Flores.
Just to, clarify where this money is coming from. As I understand, the amount is about 490,000 for the county, 490 for the city. And then there's about 24,000, I guess it goes to the county for the administering of all these funds and cutting the checks and all of that. Where does all this money originate? Where does it come from? And I think that would be instructive to the community as to where this money is coming from.
Yeah, so I can't speak for the county side and exactly where it is in their budgets, but during this whole process, one of the line items in the non-departmental budget is payments to CSAC. And so that was $490,000 that was in the non-departmental line item budget that was approved on November 15th for the city.
So that money is coming from the revenue. This is coming from our budget.
Yes.
Okay. Somewhere down the line, I read where this money actually originated at some point from money that we derived from the federal government, and that there were qualifications. In other words, there's some document that says it can only be used in these areas. Nonprofits could be anything, or you could talk about 100 different things that they could do, but is there some document out there that qualifies what this money can be used for? And if the money is coming from the city, it doesn't look like we need to be governed by that document anymore, but does that exist?
So what I think you're referring to is the initial IGA between the city and the county, which is essentially the governing document for this. In there, this is, I think, 1992.
Yes.
It's quite a while ago. And what I believe you're referring to is they seem to have left funding sources open, including potential use of CDBG dollars that has very prescriptive uses. And so there is some stuff that says if it's a federally CDBG funded funding source, then you have to follow these guidelines. I think that's what you're
I
referring
think
to.
that's it.
Okay,
But you're saying we don't have to be governed by that anymore.
well, that is the IGA in place.
Hmm.
I will say that I think there's appetite to have these discussions, and I think that we've discussed this here before when we were having the discussions about non-departmentals, about revisiting this with the county this year and seeing what that may look like. And so yes, that is the governing document at this point. We would have to amend it if we wanted to change it, but I think that I think that there's conversations happening that may be something that we're looking at.
Yeah. The only reason I was bringing this up is that for some reason, when we had went through the budget process for the city and we cut $1.5 million out, the comments on the street was, well, you got this, you've got this 490,000 out there, like that was going to solve the problem. But 490,000 comes out of the city's budget. It's really a drop in the bucket. And so I really commend the committee. I mean, you have a tough job in trying to reconcile these huge requests because there's such a need, but you have to be fair with everyone. And I think you guys do an excellent job with what we have. But to the community, it's only $490,000. It's not, it's not a great amount. And I know the county does the same thing. But I just wanted to put some context in there that this is not the total answer. The answer is much broader. And I think the community expects more from the city council when it comes to helping some of our, I just did an economic forum and people don't understand that in Pueblo, Colorado, our per capita income is $53,000 and Denver, Colorado is 89,000. Colorado Springs is 78. We are a poor city. That's why we have so many nonprofits in the community with lots of needs. And they solve a lot of social issues in this community. So, but I wanted just to frame the context that to those people that thought this was the ultimate solution, this is not the ultimate solution. This is a drop in the bucket. Although the people that get it do appreciate it. And thank you again for your hard work on this.
Counselor Martinez has one more question.
Sorry, just a quick one. Do the members get any training or like skill building as it relates to philanthropy or grant making?
We currently don't have that in place. One of my goals coming into this position is making sure that there's learnings tied to every single one of our meetings. It'll go over nonprofit management,
Great.
philanthropic practices, and also just an ongoing look at what is happening within our community to be more informed in our grant making practices.
That's great.
That is a
And you're the
priority.
one to do it, Gina. So thanks for leading that.
Counselor Gomez.
Yeah, in reference to nonprofits, we have some really good people on this list here. I'm not gonna say everybody I'm crazy about, but how do you go from, we had issues with Mariposa and they've asked for a request of 100,000 and then they're booted up to 145,000 on the recommended award. How does that work? Unless I'm reading it wrong.
No.
We are actually should be. Yes, so your question again was, how did we get to that point when you,
They're
Chose not to
requesting
fund it.
100,000 and they're getting and you're
they requested 200,000 according to our, with, and so we awarded them 145.
That may just be something that I may have,
Is it typo?
it might be, actually, I can see what I did when I was copy and pasting this for you all. This is something that folks at home don't have, but it looks like I have your lines kind of
That's-
off there, so I apologize for that.
That's fine, I'm just asking. And then next one is Pueblo Diversified Industries. And I sat on their board for a long time and I'm just curious, $325,000 ask and then a 0 award recommendations. I don't know that, how much of that is there of their entire budget, but how did you conclude that?
That was a capital request, and given the very small amount of money that we have to be able to allocate, we wouldn't have been able to really fulfill any significant amount of contribution towards that capital request. And so it became just a lower priority of funding, given a new program that they were cultivating versus immediate need.
I'm learning as I'm going, so hang in there with me. Are there any of the CSAC board members have any affiliations with any of these agencies that are applying for money? That you know of?
I don't think there's any that we know of. However, if there was, they would need to recuse themselves from that. It's actually outlined in the bylaws, the process for that.
And we did have one individual who was on the board, Ballet Folklorico, and she recused herself from that process.
Okay, and one more thing, and maybe it's me, but how do we, unless we're not doing it? Because I see some of the nonprofits come forward and then I'm saying, I could have sworn we just had something on CSAC and yet they're coming to council, it seems separately, different occasions or different times. How do you keep control of that? What guardrails are in place? Because we're busy up here and sometimes I've seen these guys come up more than once and I'm going, how does that work?
Thank you for that. We do our best to try to be mindful of the requests that are coming forward. Unfortunately, as the system, as the structure is placed now, we are not always privy to the requests that are coming to you at what time and what those requests actually detail. And so although we try to be mindful that there might be organizations coming to you as well as CSAC, it's difficult for us to use that as a criteria for funding because we're not entirely privy to the information of what they're requesting of you versus what they're requesting of us. And then also the timeline of when you are all making decisions on that is very similar to the same time frame as when we're meeting as well. And so the calendars aren't lining up. So we don't have confirmation of what you have awarded by the time we're making our recommendations.
Mayor, could you add on to that? I just trying to get clear on it, that's all.
It could be beneficial for the council to see these recommendations and have these before the budget process, even though that their funding is contingent on the passing of the budget. And that way you would see who CSAC is recommending if there's dual asks, and then make your decisions based off your non-departmental nonprofit funding, based off who has requested funding from CSAC. So that might be something to look at into 2026.
Okay, thank you.
And Counselor Latino.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm wondering why Mariposa got $145,000 and some of these others that requested money are getting a whole lot less. In particular, the Eastside Child Care Center. And there's others in here. I have some real concerns about that. And the YWCA came here one evening several months ago. And what we were talking about then is we were talking about salaries. And I'm really concerned, not having the total budget in front of me, as to exactly where this $45,000 above the request of $100,000 is going to.
Let me be very clear that I apologize that what I put in front of your desk, I was making earlier this evening. And clearly that number is incorrect. They requested $200,000. And then the recommendation is for $145,000.
Again, I have some concerns about that organization and what their objectives really are. Thank you.
Counselor Flores.
to the community, the word Mariposa means absolutely nothing. And I have to be the one to say that Mariposa is dealing with the most vulnerable children and spouses in this community. They are the ones that provide housing to battered women and abusive children. And so they are a harbor, a safe place for, a wife, I guess a husband too, that could be abused, and their children. And so they provide a service, I think, that that is so needed in any community. And so to me, they come up to the top of the list when we're talking about our number one goal as a city council. It's safety. And who wouldn't want to provide some funding to these individuals? I mean, there was a rumor going around that maybe they were going to have to close shop because of the cut that we did as a city council back when we were going through the budget. But just to be clear to the community, this is the organization that provides a safe haven for women that are being not only abused in their marriage or whatever, but they're being stalked. And so they provide a safe haven and a place where that is confidential. And so now at least a woman and her children can be safeguarded and have a safe place to go. So I don't have a problem with that. It would have been nice to have the column as to what we gave them last year, all of these, because it's not a comparison with what they're asking versus what we're going to be giving them. It would have been instructive to have that column that indicates how much we gave last year. And I think that would have been a more, because we have the same amount of dollars, but that has to be moved around based on their submissions.
We can certainly follow up with that information as well.
Thank you.
Counselor Gomez.
Yeah, and I agree with some of the things that Council Flores is saying. However, we have a fiduciary responsibility no matter how tough it gets. And for instance, look what happened at the Mission Rescue Center. People absconding with money. And the fact that we're simply asking or requesting, nobody's above reproach, period. As far as I'm concerned, no matter how good the mission. I'm very familiar with them. For 18 years, I was bringing women over there and children over to the YWS for many years. So I know what the operation is. We're not questioning, but we are questioning the way that they're reporting or not being vetted and supplying the information that we requested. So there's nothing to do that. I believe they're very essential, but there are also other agencies that do similar kind of task and who are doing a better job of getting their financials done, and the fiduciary responsibility falls on us. So I agree with you saying, I think they're very important, but I think they got to do a better job. And that's the only thing we were questioning. Thank you.
Counselor Boston.
So you made the request that the city provide them $0 or the recommendation, correct?
Ultimately, it was the mayor, but I did work on that, yes.
Why did we reach that decision there and this decision here?
So this decision here is completely based on the CSAC members. There is not city input. This is the appointed CSAC members. So they came to the decision that there should be $145,000 recommended. And the city had some issues with the previous administrations or their previous CEOs' audit findings.
Counselor Latino.
Again, I'm not questioning the value or the validity of the organization itself. I'm just questioning, we're talking money here. And we're talking other organizations that do the same thing that they do. Maybe they're not dealing with homeless moms and children, but they're dealing with children in a poverty-stricken area. And they requested 70 and got 53,000. I'm talking about the East Side Child Care Center. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Yeah, I just think that the questions regarding Mariposa, since we had gone through things with Mariposa, they're warranted, they're valid. And then it threw everybody the typo. Was it also a typo for Posada? Is that also a typo?
There's those 4 lines right there that they're shifted up a line. I will get everybody this corrected. Yeah. I apologize.
Okay. So, I think that, we've all had questions about it and we've had thoughts and ideas to give it a, looking into the bylaws and so forth and seeing if there's something that we need to do different. There's been some discussion. I guess it's just up to council to try to move forward with the county commissioners to make sure that we're crossing the Ts and dotting the Is. And so I guess we'll be moving forward on that at some point. Yes, Counselor Gomez?
It's interesting that Brett brought up the fact that once zero from the mayor's office, and now we're back to 145,000 to 200,000. I'm just curious, and collectively looking at this, all of the recommendations. And again, not knowing the process probably as good as I should, but if we have an issue, okay, and these are just award recommendations, correct? We have an issue with some particulars in reference to what he just mentioned. How do we get that cleared up before we make an overall decision on the entire recommendation?
Yeah, so that's actually interesting, and I don't think this has ever happened before. We may have to consult the legal team on this because in the interagencies, we've already presented this to the Board of County Commissioners last Tuesday on the 7th, and it was approved. So there is a path forward. I don't know that I can tell you exactly what that path forward would look like right now. We would have to look at the IGA and possibly speak with our legal team.
The only reason I'm bringing that, I remember I complimented the things that were brought forward to us by the mayor and the surgical knife that he used to try to slim down that collective budget for all the nonprofits. And that took a lot of guts to do that. But to go from there to what he just recommended, it's not sitting with me. We can't just say, okay, let's just waive. No, there's got to be a reason why they were at zero in this office and now they're recommending 145,000, they're coming back for an ask of 200,000. I don't understand that play at all.
If I can speak to that, part of it is that there are 2 different processes in place, what you all do within the city versus what CSAC is. CSAC is what we consider participatory grant making. They are your constituents who you've appointed to sit on this commission to make these determinations. And we are provided financials and we are able to review them. And we are able to interview the different organizations. And for our sake, if they answer our concerns in a way that is appropriate and makes sense to us, then we collectively make that decision that this is what we are going to prioritize. Now, if you want, the beauty of participatory grant making is you're giving some power to your constituents. It's not you necessarily making those choices. And although we are fiscally responsible and we do look at those things, we also look at it through a different lens. We are closer to what is happening within the community. And so the grant making process is just a little bit different. So if you're wanting a very pure community voice, engagement, bringing your constituents together to help make decisions, there is a little bit of difference in how we prioritize things. Now, if it is the will of the council to be more prescriptive, then that doesn't necessarily hold true to the spirit of what this sort of grant making entails. We can absolutely lean on you to provide us more direction or more requirements. But for what we have based on the RFP that we were following, the application materials that were given to us, that's how we came to prioritize these. It is not easy. It's not a perfect system, but it is considered the gold standard when it comes to grant making practices within the philanthropic sector. You want the people to be able to be engaged in where their money is being spent. And this is one way that we chose to do that. There's never enough money. We would love to give so much more to Eastside Childcare and so many of these other organizations. Unfortunately, with what we have, we try to do the best that we can.
I just want to make it clear that I don't want my questioning to be misinterpreted. Or I'm not talking about intent
Right.
to hurt anybody. That's not what I'm saying here. When it comes to questions though, and we all have to just take a step back and not take it or internalize all this stuff. Just put it out there. If it happened, transpose the number, I got it. I'm not looking, this is a target. Now we have something that we can go bitch about and blame. It's not what I'm saying. I am saying, I feel very comfortable with this office, and I wish you were still over, I'm just, and the way they respond, and they don't hide, and they don't make excuses. They're out there, and they say, this is what happened, okay? And if we make honest mistakes, it can't be twisted, and it was intentional. That we got to stop doing that as a council, and I think we got to start doing that in politics altogether. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, Councilor Flores.
I just wanted to make a comment. You know, when we put the CSAC board together, it was specifically for for allowing the community to participate. The worst thing I think this council can do is start micromanaging every little detail, amount, because the CSAC board was put together specifically to give you the autonomy to make these decisions. It's all right for us to ask these questions, but if I'm in your shoes, why would I spend the hours that I do volunteering your time if in fact we're going to be second guessing you every second of the day? So I don't want this responsibility. I don't want the job of because that would be the other alternative. I mean, if we're going to be scrutinizing you to this degree, maybe we should just take the responsibility back. I don't want it. I don't want it. I trust you guys to do the right thing. This is my 8th year that I have received a report from CSAC, and it is amazing how many people have gone through there, really good people in the community, that you're doing the best that you can. And, I don't want the responsibility of having to scrub all of these applications. There's not enough hours in the day for us to do that. We have to start trusting things like this. And I can say for myself, I trust the CSAC board to make those right decisions.
I think that we all look forward to having a board in place that does those jobs for us, right? We have all these separate boards here in town. That does not mean that it's a free-for-all. The council does oversee, because in the end, we make the final decision. This is the closest that this community gets to see to how their own funds are being spent. When we get grant funding from the state or the federal government, the public doesn't have as much of a passion for and accounting for it as their money as they do from a local level. The questions that are coming from here are the questions that are coming from the constituency of this city. They want to know. They want to ask these questions, right? They're just another member of this community that doesn't sit on the board, but would like to know what's going on. So that's just the whole part of it. This is what's the part of it. And so everybody that's up here speaking is representing their community, asking questions that they know that their community members, what they're thinking from their perspective. Okay, Mayor Graham.
Councilor Flores mentioned the totals for the last few years, and I do have Mariposa's totals for you. And what I can share is that in 2023, between the city and CSAC, they were awarded $113,000. In 2024, they were awarded $108,000. That's not including the $70,000 that the council gave them in gap funding in the beginning of the year when their boiler was going to go out. And then this year, with the city recommending $0 in non-departmental and $145,000, this is the largest sum that they've received in the last 3 years. And it's almost triple what CSAC usually gives them. And so I do understand your concerns. And what I will tell you is my office was not consulted on any of these CSAC recommendations or why the city didn't choose to fund certain nonprofits to the non-departmentals. And so I think that council should know that, we had no say over what these requests were.
Okay, and Counselor Latino.
Again, my major concern is that the organizations are treated fairly. I have no problem with Mariposa getting money, but I do have problem with the CEO who's getting what, $150,000 a year? Is that what she was getting?
I'm not sure, Counselor.
It was something like that. And and she got frozen because they came to us with a request for a significant raise. And we turned it down. That's my concern. I have no problem with money going to organizations that are doing what it is that they need to do to support the community, to help young people, children in particular, and moms that are single moms trying to make it, etc. Poverty-stricken individuals. But I do have problems with CEOs making significant amounts of money when their organization is struggling. And that's all I need to say. Thank you.
Counselor Boston.
Yeah, so I would just like to clarify, I wasn't saying I dislike Mariposa or dislike the process or dislike community involvement, or I'm trying to nitpick every dollar you guys are appointing to choose to where you go. I was just, there was a reason that the mayor's office with your assistance chose $0. I don't know if that's something we can share now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all public information. We had requested audit findings from every non-departmental or nonprofit if they had their audits ready at the time. And Mariposa did have a negative audit finding. And the city also provided them with about $70,000 early on in the year. Their ask was $55,000. And I thought that because the city had already provided them an additional $70,000 and they did have a bad audit finding in the way that they had been reporting and spending federal dollars, that it didn't seem like a good idea to fund them until they got those areas taken care of. So they can apply again next year. And if their audit looks different, it'll be definitely something we reconsider.
Yeah, so I think they have a great mission. I think what they do is awesome, but that's the only thing I just wanted to bring forth is the fact that there may have been some issues and now we're giving another large sum of money is all.
Counselor Gomez.
Yeah, I understand, and I've known Dennis a long time, Counselor Flores, and he's very compassionate, but I'm just concerned that some of the grant monies and the monies that we utilize to fund all this stuff is kind of dismissed, that it's just grant money. It's just this assessment done or this feasibility done, all these different things that we throw out here that we never put in front of those words, the word taxpayer. Okay. And taxpayers are ultimately responsible for this and they're entitled, even if it's only in $145,000. I don't consider that something I'm doing to be micromanaging. I'm just asking a question, and everybody, including CSAC, who's ever on this board has to do anything with dollars. Fiduciary responsibility is kind of a big word for a lot of folks, but it means we're doing our job. That's what we're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be questioning, not just saying, okay, you're a great organization and your mission is wonderful. You still got to come up to the table and answer the questions. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
I
Okay.
appreciate that. If I could, our board does take their role very seriously. They do understand that they are stewards of taxpayer dollars. Every single one of us are taxpayers on the board, and we have an invested interest in this. It is difficult at times to be able to make these decisions when we're trying to prioritize funding. If we don't have the resources available to us to be able to make data-driven decisions. And I think we have in the past, or we did make a recommendation for a needs assessment to be able to say anecdotally, I could say that food security insecurity is a huge issue within Pueblo, or substance use disorders, huge issue, homelessness. Those things we can all say anecdotally are concerns and should be prioritized. But for us to be able to be more intentional with our decision making, it is helpful to have data and guidance even from you all to say these are the areas of most concern. We don't have a lot of money in this pot. Some people may think it is, but it's just a drop in the bucket, and we're just throwing, money at bigger problems. So being able to have guidance from council and the commission to say, these are the priorities, these are the critical issues within our community that we want you as CSAC to focus on, and then provide us the freedom to be able to make those decisions within the scope and within the recommendations of what is determined to be most critical within our community. Because when we're sitting here, we're funding everything from Bessemer Historical Society to veterans to disability resources. And how do we even begin to think or figure out who should get what dollar amount? It is a very, very tricky process. And we do our best, but it's not a perfect system. And until we have kind of a baseline understanding of what the goals of CSAC are, what you all hope will be the outcomes of our grant making, it does make it a little bit more difficult when we're having those in-depth conversations about who should get this much money and who should get this much money, because it is us making determinations on multiple different pots of money and how do we prioritize that? There's just so much need. So guidance and information and data and landscape analyses will be helpful. We are just a volunteer board. We don't have the expertise or time to do these in-depth studies to really determine what is going to be most impactful in the work that we're doing or within our grant making. So, leaning on you all, as well as with the county commissioners to help guide that process or provide us with more resources to make more informed decisions would be greatly beneficial to the process.
All righty. Did you still have another question, Sarah? Okay. Thank you, ladies.
you.
For your presentation tonight. And we're going to be moving into executive session.
Madam Chair, I move to go into executive session for the purpose of determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and or instructing negotiators under CRS Section 24-6-402, Parent 4, Parent E, Parent I, and to discuss the purchase, acquisition, lease, transfer, or sale of any real, personal, or other property interest pursuant to CRS 24-6-402, Parent 4, Parent A, and more fully described as follows: to discuss the purchase of commercial property and to receive information from Petco regarding potential prospects. No adoption of any proposed policy, position, resolution, rule, regulation, or formal action shall occur at any executive session that is not open to the public.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Hello, everyone. We will be doing a draw for public comment tonight. We currently have 10 people. That we will draw 6 people to speak. Mix it up real good. 1, 2, 3. 4, 5, 6. All right. Number 3, Elvis Martinez.
I love you, Clyde.
Number 10, Kathy Nichols. She'll be on Zoom. Number 7, Jimmy Duffner. Is he here? Jimmy's here? Okay. Number 2, Charlie Fetty. Is he here? Great. Oh, of course. Number 8, Mike Wakefield. Still here. And number 5, David Cockrell. Okay. So just as a reminder, you are the only ones who will be able to speak during public comment. Your comment should not be related to any item that's already available for speaking on the agenda, and you may not cede your time to any other individual. So if any of the people that were drawn do not wish to speak, please tell me now so I can draw someone else. So you may not speak on a resolution that's on the consent agenda. You can speak on resolutions that have been pulled to the regular agenda. If a resolution does get pulled to the regular agenda, you'll be able to speak on it, but you can speak on it during public comment at the moment if it's on the consent agenda.
I would like to withdraw.
You'd like to withdraw?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I speak about the community commission and how we accomplish this?
That is currently on the consent agenda, so you would be able to speak to that during public comment, yes. Okay, we are going to draw one more. Mr. Wakefield has decided to remove himself. All right, so number 4, Rodney Sanders. Okay, so you will also be speaking. Okay. Any other questions regarding public comment?
If I cede my spot, I would like to trade it with somebody else.
You cannot.
Okay, then I'm gonna keep.
Yeah, so you can speak yourself or we can draw someone else. To be clear, there are 3 other possible people that could be drawn. So if you know 3 other people and any of those 3 people are ones that you'd be okay with speaking, then you.
That's not true.
Okay. Is AJ Coletti here? Oh, great. Come on up.
The time is now 7:03 PM and we adjourn the work session meeting. We will be returning at 7:15 for our regular meeting. Thank you.